for them.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And let's see, who else did I see with their hand up? Let's see. Abigail. What does it look like for your students to have challenges with boundaries?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's usually like when they will need help or something, they'll come up to you and like put their hands on you, like they want the attention. So that's like their way of getting the attention.
Yeah, like that's their way of asking for help, right?
Yes. It's like an easier, like I feel like that's like the easier way, like they know if they're gonna come to you and like touch you, they're gonna get your attention for sure.
Like it's worked in the past, so it'll work now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Feel free to continue sharing in the chat. I invite you to add in and I will, see and share those things. What I really want to get across here is that boundaries aren't selfish. You are allowed to have boundaries. And even more importantly, young students actually need those because that's going to help them feel safe and know what to expect. We talk a lot. I mean, I know that we've used about 1 million buzzwords, but this idea of trauma-informed practices, something that's really important for students who have been through a lot of trauma and a lot of inconsistency, is to have a consistent and a safe environment. So if they know every time what they're going to expect, that's important. So with boundaries, that can be a hard thing to do. I'm going to hazard a guess that a lot of us were not taught how to set boundaries in constructive ways growing up. For me, I feel like sometimes there's this this binary between, hey, don't do that, and letting people do whatever they want to do. But that's not how it needs to be. We want to be assertive. We want to be authoritative. And so that's why I have right here this ABC model for us to set boundaries. And this is actually draws from a lot of the ways that folks do boundary setting with kids in child-centered play therapy, in counseling, in some of these spaces where the focus is on relationship. So the ABC is to help you remember this. First step is acknowledging and affirming that there's a feeling or a want or a need behind a boundary. Or not behind a boundary, I'm sorry, behind crossing a boundary. So I'm looking at some of these examples in the chat. I see helping students do math, but they didn't want the help. Felt uncomfortable. Yeah, so if somebody was feeling uncomfortable and saying, hey, I want to be left alone, what might be the feeling or the need that student has?
You highly classified document. But because there's a non-functioning Congress,
what is a student who is saying, hey, leave me alone, or hey, I don't want your help? What do they need? Or what would be your best guess? Brain break or space? Okay, yeah. Can anyone else think of any other feelings or wants or needs that might be coming up if somebody's like, hey, I don't want your help, go away? And feel free to go for it, Amy.
So one of the things I think, if students are saying, I don't want your help or go away, that they need is a little bit of space and the freedom to do something on their own. If they are constantly coming in asking you for help, it's most likely going to be a need for reassurance. And there could also be a fear of failure there.
Absolutely. And so the first step to this is to acknowledge that you hear them. So if somebody's coming up and they're saying, I need help, I know you really need help, or you're worried about how this is going to go for you, or you're feeling frustrated, right? Like, I know you're feeling frustrated right now. So you don't want to set the boundary without having said that first, without having made them feel heard. I see Chris. What's up, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely co-sign that. I think also, one thing that's really endemic in the adult understanding of children is this idea that they always know what they do, that they
Mhm.
always are aware. And, so how many times have you all heard parents say, oh, she knows what she's doing, and you look over and this kid is like 6. And I'm it's almost like the meme with Thor squinting, and you're just kind of like, okay, though, they understand this. They quote unquote know what they're doing in a way that is rudimentary and subconscious, not in a way that is manipulative. And that's usually what that gets cast as. And sometimes students who are clearly in need of help, who are clearly in over their head, will say, I just want to be left alone or something like that, right? They'll kind of shut down. I don't usually have that happen to me, but on the occasions that it has, this is what I told them. I said, look, I'm making an attempt, and I offer an attempt again. And I say, look, I respect the fact that like you don't want to deal with this right now. So I'm gonna let you be. I'll say, but I'm very busy. I'm going around. I'm gonna be helping other people with other stuff. Even if I look like I'm in the middle of something, go ahead and give me a tap. Pull me aside. I will help you with what I said I will help you with. But just know that I'm around and you're on my mind. Okay, so, and there are a few things there. One is object permanence, right? Which is something that's very much still developing in the mind of a child, right? If you're gone, are you still aware of me? Do you still care about me? Am I still on your mind? This is part of why they come to you. And somebody earlier had mentioned they put their hands on you, but they're putting their hands on you because their needs are very urgent to them. And these are things that were very neglected, through the pandemic years and through the Zoom years. So that's what I do. That's kind of where that's coming from. And it's important to understand, the test of boundaries too, it sets the script for the rest of the relationship. So if they're saying, I want to be left alone, and you're then, some people I think are even, they get a little defensive and they're kind of like, oh, you want to be left alone? Okay, well, have it come out or something like that. I've never had that happen on my side or anyone who's really like that, but I've seen it happen with adults. It does happen with teachers. And, they don't like being told that. They don't like being disrespected, but it's important to set that aside and kind of, you're the adult in the room here and say, okay, I will respect your boundary. And they know or can then kind of make decisions about how you're going to respond to things in the future.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, definitely. It's really important to be able to acknowledge that. And yeah, it's unmet needs so much of the time. I see Abigail. Did you have something to add to that, Abigail?
I would like to say that it also kind of depends on their tones.
Mhm.
Like if they just say like, oh no, like I'm okay right now, then probably they just want to like, do it on their own and then like challenge yourself. But I feel like if it's like in like kind of like a stress tone, is like they probably do need the help, but they're just like afraid of asking for the help. It just depends on the student, and like if you know how like the student behavior and stuff, it just depends on that. Probably had a bad day and they just like need their space. But I feel like it has a lot to do with their tone and the way they're asking for it.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the tone. I think it has to do with the how common it is for them. If you have a student who's always really outgoing and one day they're like, leave me alone, that's different than somebody who is who maybe doesn't trust you yet and who, you need to respect the limits. So thank you both for sharing and adding to that. Yes. Or if somebody says, no, I don't need help, and they've got, that fear in their eyes, that's different from, oh yeah, I'm fine. I just need to do my reading or something like that. So that is our first step to setting those boundaries. I know that can sound kind of surprising, but the first piece is to acknowledge, hey, I see what you need. I see what you want. I see what you're looking for. I know you really need the help. I know you really want to talk to me right now. I know you're feeling so frustrated with this. And that goes along with empathy. That goes along with respect. that goes along with relationship, which, as you know, those are two of our top 2 R's. And once you've done that, does that mean that you have to have all of these students clustering around you? I think that's not sustainable for a huge number of us, and I think it's not helpful for the students. So that would be the point where you do get to set that boundary. I know you really need my help right now, but I have to help this person right now, and then I'll come to you if that's a promise that you're able to keep. Or I know you are feeling so frustrated. And we're going to use different words to describe how we're feeling. And I need you to keep your hands to yourself, or that's a place where you can redirect back to those group agreements after you've acknowledged this is what you're feeling. It is so okay to feel what you're feeling. And here's this next piece. And then the third piece of this is giving an alternative choice, because maybe they don't know what else to do. I know you really need my help. I know you really want to talk with me right now. You can choose to do X, Y, or Z. I know you're feeling so frustrated. I know you want to throw that. You can choose to sit down and take a couple breaths, or you can choose to walk around the classroom, or you can choose to get up and stretch, because they may not have an idea of what other choices they can make. And that's why that's an important piece of this. You can't just say, no, don't do that, without thinking about what is the behavior that you actually want to see. And we talk about that a ton when we're talking about positive behavior intervention support and our tier 1 interventions. So I'm going to show you what this looks like in practice. And this, again, as we've talked about with everything, this is a template. You are going to customize this to be yourself. But let's just look at it in action. So let's say that you have somebody who is really frustrated with their homework and they're swearing, and that's something that you are not comfortable with in your sessions. So just an example. I know you're feeling really annoyed with this. Here in Keep, we're not going to use that word. You can choose to take 3 deep breaths, or you can choose to take a brain break if maybe you use brain break tickets at your site, and so on. And if this is a boundary that you've talked about repeatedly, you might also ask them, hey, what could you choose to do instead right now? I know you're feeling frustrated. What could you choose to express that frustration right now? Or if they're poking and bothering another student, hey, what could you choose to do instead right now? I know you really want to talk with your friend, or I know you really want to, I know you really want some attention right now. What could you choose to do instead? And I think that Chris kind of hit the nail on the head here when he was talking earlier. Kids aren't just like these secret master manipulators, y'all. I think sometimes we have this idea like they have to know what they're doing because it's getting under my skin. But they're trying to get their needs met. And so our goal is to help them get those needs met in ways that's healthy for them. And it's also healthy for us. So that is why I'm encouraging this as a way to healthily boundary set. You see them, you know what they need. You can tell them, hey, I know what's going on right now. I know how you're feeling right now. And here's the boundary. I am going to be putting up a cheat sheet on this with some more examples. So if that is something that you are interested in, I will be sending it out and you can have a look at that. So that's one important skill in working with these younger students who don't know their boundaries yet, is to set them in healthy ways. And you can show them how to do it too. Other one is structured choice. When we're talking about structured choice, we are talking about giving students options of what to do to allow them to feel some agency. And we have a couple of examples of this here. This, I think, goes along with respect and with the ability to have some choice over what they're doing. And the goal is that they've got kind of a structured menu. All of the choices that you're giving them are things that you're okay with. or things that are okay to do in this session, but they are still getting to decide what it is that they're doing. This is actually something that people do oftentimes, even just parenting, hey, okay, are you gonna, I know that you really don't want to eat dinner. Are we gonna eat on the blue plate or the green plate? And it seems so small, but kids need that opportunity to make choices. Can you tell us a little about this example, Amy, of how you might do this in a like instructional setting?
Yeah, absolutely. So the example I have here is one that I've done in the past with students in terms of I required my students to write a summary of a book they read every day. And you can say to them, okay, so you can choose one of these 5 to do today, and then you can choose one of the other 4 tomorrow. So, and they're unique. Sorry, I'm losing my voice right now. And they're unique. Things like acting out a scene from the story you read, write a 3-sentence summary, drawing a summarizing picture, right? Each one of the ones written there touches a different aspect of a creative type of personality or not. So write a 3-sentence summary. I know some students who are like, that's easy for me. I'm going to write the 3-sentence summary and be done with it, right? But you also want to challenge students. So let's say you have 5 options, right, as we do here, and they write a 3-sentence summary on Monday. They can't do that for the rest of the week. They have to do one of the other 4. And then it keeps getting so that by Friday, they only have the one left. And it might be the one they like the least, or it might be the one they like the most. I don't know, but that's their choice. They're choosing when to do which one. A simpler one, and this one will help out a lot with students who keep walking up to you saying they need help. And we all know that there are students who do that and don't actually need the help. They're just afraid to start the problem. So you could have them you could say, well, would you like to do 3 problems by yourself or 4 problems by yourself? And then have me check it, right? That's a way to regulate how often they're coming up to you and to challenge them to do what you know they can do, right? And this helped out a lot. I had a student who was very anxious about getting their math done at the beginning of the fall semester 2020. And I asked them, I said, okay, so here's what I want you to do. I said, I want you to do the next one by yourself. And when it's done, you come find me. And they did, and they showed me, and I said, yeah, that's the right answer. Good job. And then they gained the confidence. And so they realized they didn't need as much help. That's one thing that can happen with the three problems or 4 problems. Another thing is we had a student who blatantly didn't want to be there. So we would challenge them to, okay, you got to do this. So let's write 1 sentence and then you can take a break. Write a 2nd sentence, then you can take a break, right? Things like that to engage, to get the students to get the work done. And also give them a little bit of agency in what they're doing. And then Sketch, do you want to go on with the next one, the next example?
Absolutely, yeah. First, I actually want to ask if anyone can think of an R that this connects to. I know we're doing it over and over again. You're so tired of hearing about R's. What do you think what does this connect to in your mind? We're allowing students to make some choices. Reintegration. Tell me about how that connects to reintegration, Callan.
Isn't it like another form of these examples are another form of redirection, which will allow them to come back into the space once they're done?
I think it could be. I think you're yes-anding what they're saying. And yeah, I know you really don't want to do this. So let's figure out, you have some choices for how you're going to do it rather than just, well, you didn't want to do it. So, pushing you outside, you don't get the help that you need. Totally. Can anyone think of any other R's that this might connect to? We talked about respect. What about responsibility, y'all? What does
Yeah,
this
we have-
teach our students?
Paige said relationships in the chat
Nice.
and responsibility. Yeah.
Tell me about how this connects to relationships, Paige.
So I think, can you guys hear me okay, first of all? I feel like this is a
Absolutely.
question everybody
You're good.
asks. Well, I mean, it ties into all of our R's. Obviously, it's a very fundamental thing that students need to be given agency and to learn that, oh, the things that I do are right sometimes. That's good. But
Mhm.
also, when we as mentors give them that, they can see, oh, this is a person that is helping me achieve, maybe obviously they're not having this long thought process, but this is a person that is helping me do things and repeatedly has shown me how to do things that have good results. So that builds a very strong and like important level of trust.
Mhm.
So yes, it does, tie into all of the R's, but I feel like just for me personally, the way I'm seeing it, relationship is one of the most important ones.
Absolutely. Relationship is so core to what we're doing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, as I look at this and I think about it, I end up looking back on my own experiences growing up or being in school. And my question for myself has always been, how often did I get to make my own choices? How often, and I'm serious, how often is that a part of children's lives that they get to make a choice and it's a harmless choice and they get to pick it? I don't think it's as common as it needs to be. And I think that really affects the ways that kids grow up, their self-concept, their identity, all kinds of things. And so this is a really good opportunity for us to be those mentors. And as you may notice, this doesn't look necessarily like, oh, I'm doing my check-in and saying, how are you? This can happen while I'm doing homework. This can happen in the form of a lesson. And so this could happen as you're going outside. And so I think this is a way that mentoring and that relationship building and that connection gets built into our sessions, even as you're trying to follow a schedule, even as you're saying, oh, okay, we only got 30 minutes for supper, or 30 minutes for outdoor time. There it is. And this other example, this is helpful for that de-escalation. If you have a student who you really need to have a one-on-one talk with, maybe you start by giving them a structured choice. So you've already made a decision. We're going to step outside for a minute. And then you give them the structured choice. Hey, do you want to go get water? Or do you want to do a lap around the cafeteria and we can talk? That's putting a little bit of power in their hands, even as you've had to make this decision of, we got to talk. There's some behavior stuff going on. I want to understand and get to the bottom of it. And I hope you can see in here how subtle this is. This can even be with homework. Hey, are we going to do Smarty Ants first, or are we going to do iReady first? And then having them make that choice. And maybe you are doing what Amy's saying, and maybe you're challenging them. And okay, so let's do iReady first tomorrow. And then holding them to that. That may be a helpful thing for working with these younger students. And structured choice is going to break it down for them, because if you tell them, hey, what do you want to do first? They're going to, I don't know, because they're still trying to process all of these other things that are going on. So very simple, very straightforward, works really well with the shorter attention span, because, hey, you're just making one choice right now. Maybe we're going to make another choice in a few minutes, but right now, all you have to focus on is this one choice. Any questions about any of this so far? Questions, comments, thoughts? All righty, then we are gonna switch gears and we're gonna go into our next section and we're gonna talk about older students. And this is all you, Amy.
Yes. So I will say that I like working with all students, but older students are a lot of fun for me because they're weird. let's be real, okay? They're not yet adults, right? They're not yet teenagers, and yet they're not young kids. So the 4 to 6 or third, well, yeah, 4 through 6th graders are a lot of fun for me. Some of the common things that came up in asking people about their challenges working with older students were attitude, engagement, and relationship. So attitude, we have 4 questions, right, that we use for redirecting homework. Well, this works also with behavior and with disrespect. They're worded a little differently. Did we include that in here, Sketch?
We did. It's on an upcoming slide.
All right.
Does everybody know what we're talking about when we talk about 4 questions?
Yeah, that was my next.
All right.
Yeah. Does everybody know the 4 questions? We've talked about this previously, and some of you have the card in your IDs. But does anyone not know what the 4 questions are? All right, I'm going to move on. They work well with redirecting attitude as well. And be sure that the student doesn't feel disrespected. Okay, we do want to take a moment and talk to the student and say something to the effect of, again, I said this the other day, I said this on Tuesday, make this your own. You are not me. I don't expect you to do this the same way, exact way I do. But as an example, hey, I noticed that you're using some disrespectful language, and I'm wondering, have we done something that makes you feel disrespected? Right? That's a good question to ask, because we genuinely want to know, and we want to be sure that we haven't done something or said something that makes the student feel disrespected. This is very, very important in relationship building. And we also need to keep in the back of our minds that not all of us come from the same culture. Not all of us have the same family life. Not all of us have the same anything, realistically, all unique. So something that might not be disrespectful to you may be seen as disrespectful by your students. And we need to give them an opportunity to express that, right? Engagement. So we want to find unique ways they can be involved that respects their dislike of what we're doing. Okay. So for example, you have someone, I had this happen at Emerson when I was there, with the outdoor activities that we were doing. So they started doing TikTok dances on the side. They would put up their phones and they would dance to the TikTok dances. Was that a physical activity? Yes, it is. I don't know if you've tried some of these TikTok dances, but they're not easy. So I'm down for that, right? Do some TikTok dances outside instead of playing basketball if they want to. Scorekeeper, they could be a scorekeeper. They're still outside, still participating. They could be a class aide, handing out papers or handing out materials, collecting materials, anything like that, right? All of these things are important. It's important to acknowledge that they're not going to like everything, and it's okay that they don't like it. There's nothing wrong with them not liking playing basketball. I don't like playing basketball. Not going to lie. I don't even like watching basketball. Sorry, y'all. I apologize. I know a lot of you guys are really upset right now that I am not a Lakers fan, but I'm just not. So moving along to relationship. So giving them something else to engage in, a different task to engage in when they don't like what you're doing, helps with relationship building as well. And you want to learn their interests and consider them when planning activities. This can be challenging with 50 students. I get it. It can be challenging to remember what all 50 of your students like. This is why I would recommend that this part, learning their interests, be done in smaller groups, right? You have a whole team at your site. So I hate to say it this way, but assign some students to team members. And then in your debrief, you can mention, oh, so-and-so likes Sonic the Hedgehog. We had a student who loved Sonic the Hedgehog at Lexington last year. This student likes Sonic the Hedgehog, so can we incorporate that somehow? And we did. We actually bought some Sonic books. We had some Sonic reading material to make it more interesting for that student to read. We also did, when we did our Dia de los Muertos unit for the week, that student didn't celebrate Dia de los Muertos. Their mother didn't allow them to, or Halloween. They weren't allowed to celebrate them at home. So we provided different crafts for that student to do while the others, along the same lines as what the other students were doing, but just adjacent and not related to Halloween or Dia de los Muertos. So we did, and yes, you can laugh at my American accent when I say that. That's okay. I'm perfectly fine with you laughing at that. But we had him do mostly like Sonic or Mandalorian themed things. So he got to color a Mandalorian coloring page while they did their crystal skulls. And he got to skulls to do the craft while they made papel picado. Uh-oh, it said my internet connection is unstable. Can you all still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, raise your hand if you can hear me. All right, we good.
All right,
We good.
here they come.
All right. So there are different things to consider in that regard. And again, like I said, 50 students, I get it. I get it. I get it. Everyone clap once. Thanks, Seth. Yep. I get it. However, you can break it down into smaller groups, right? So let's move on to the next slide. So here we go. We talked about, oh, move on to the next one.
I was muted. This could be as simple, by the way, as like we're doing some word problems and you're changing the names in the word problems to be the characters that they like. It does not even have to be a full lesson. It's just that little bit of connection and that little bit of I see you in a way that they're going to actually have fun with. And I think one thing we didn't talk about with the older students is sometimes for older students, if they are like the minority in a group of mostly younger students, that can be really isolating. And there may be even more backlash of like, this feels childish. And I think you're allowed to validate that and say, yeah, this was sort of something we were doing with younger kids. So what are we going to do with you? How are we going to engage you? And just start asking those questions.
Also,
And
as a side note, just so you know, I do have a resource or a storage of specialty like math things. So I have like a Pokemon math one, and I have I think a Star Wars math one. I don't put them on the drive because of copyright reasons. But if you have any students that are interested in that, let me know. Okay.
There's some Harry Potter ones on the drive though.
There are some Harry Potter flashcards for multiplication on the drive that, as far as I know, no one's used yet. I'm surprised. So moving on, talking about one-on-one redirection. So the 4 questions of redirection for behavior are: what are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing? Are you doing it? How can you change that? Right? We joke actually on the support team. Sometimes we joke about, what are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing? Right?
I say it to my dog.
Yeah. I say it to my cat. So the 4 questions of redirection for disrespectful behavior or attitude are a little bit different. It's: who are you talking to? How should you talk to them? Were you talking to them that way? Obviously, they wouldn't be having that conversation if they were. And then how will you change that when the way you talk to them in the future? Now, again, make this your own. Please do not be a robot. Okay. Don't be an Amy robot. Don't be a sketch robot. Don't be a robot. Make it your own. But this is, by the way, a theory that has been proposed and researched thoroughly by a group called the Flippin Group. They have a training called Capturing Kids' Hearts. And it's very PBIS related and very much so similar to everything that we're doing here. And these questions come from them. So you don't want to be like, who are you talking to? How should you talk to them? Were you talking that way? Right? Attitude. You notice the attitude in my neck, right? You notice it? You notice? So we don't want to come at students like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in a later slide. But please, please, please remember that tone is everything, right? What are you doing is very different from what are you doing? Right? Right? And yes, I took acting classes, just so we're clear. The final thing, again, I'm going to reiterate this. Be sure your student isn't responding to perceived disrespect toward them, because that will null and void everything that we've done here. We want to be sure that they're not feeling disrespected. And then if they are, we want to have that discussion with them. We want to talk about how we can change and what we want to allow them to set a boundary so that they don't feel disrespected. All right.
And a lot of our students do come in with those, with that armor up, with those defenses, and they're looking, they're looking for those slights because they've experienced that in the past. So being able to be open and just have that conversation, I think, is a really key part of this mentoring. One thing that we that I want to touch on here also with this redirection is just asking them, like, why do you think this is the agreement that we've come up with? Hey, so I'm just curious, we all agreed in the start of this year that we were going to be respectful to each other. And I'm wondering, why do you think it's important to do that? Or what does that look like for you? Because all of our students are learning to critically think. All of our students are growing as people, but especially with those older kids, because they are in that, they're growing into that transitional place. They're coming into adolescence. We can really engage them that way. And just, I want to know, what is it that you think? Who is asking them? Who is caring and saying, I want to know what you think. I want to know what you feel. As opposed to working with them as a sense of crowd control.
Yeah. Also, one last thing here. The biggest and most important takeaway for us as tutors is not to take attitude personally. Okay. I had a really hard time with this when I first started tutoring. I couldn't believe that a child deigned to give me any kind of attitude. But so, you got to realize that sometimes you're just the house the tornado picks up, right? Like, you didn't cause the issue, but you're just in the path of something else going on in the student's life. And sometimes that attitude, because they're kids, they haven't learned yet. I mean, even some adults haven't learned how to not project onto other people or onto the wrong people, right?
Raise your hand if you're perfect and you've never done this.
Oh, wait. Yeah, sorry. Anyhow, so yeah, just for sure, everybody's raising their hand now.
Everyone's perfect. All right. I see how it is.
Realistically, don't take attitude personally. Try not to take it personally. Even if it's directed at you, try not to take it personally, because that'll change your reaction. And that'll actually, in most cases, cause the student to have more respect for you and build a better relationship. Okay, so Sketch, do you want to take it away?
You don't have to take the bait, I think, is the takeaway here. And in fact, being able to say, as someone is saying something, to know in your head, hey, this isn't about me. It goes a long way. So really, I think a lot of this that we've been talking about is about keeping cool under pressure. I think that often means being able to give people their full attention. I know that we've talked about being available as a part of our CARE acronym, and Osahan brought that up at the start of the year. And I do think it's important, if you're having a one-on-one with someone, if you're trying to de-escalate something, to be aware of any distractions that will affect the attention you're giving older students. I've spoken with a couple of sites who have talked about feeling like people look at their phones a lot and like, oh, well, I don't really know if you're hearing what I'm saying. I've even heard that for myself, if I am doing an onboarding or something and I've still got some notifications going, that can make people feel like they're not really being heard. And so if you are having one of those conversations, if you are trying to talk to your older students and give them your full attention, what distractions are in the way? What is stopping you from concentrating on what your students are saying? And it might even be as simple as, hey, I'm going to mute my phone while we're talking. Also, because a lot of these situations are already emotionally charged, using this language of noticing and wondering and questioning can be a really helpful way to stay neutral, to stay curious, to stay open. Because the moment you start closing up and the moment you start accusing, those tensions are going to get higher and higher. So my way of doing this personally, I have two things that I say. And one is I always try to stay curious. I don't know what someone is going to say. I don't know what someone is feeling. And the other piece is just sticking to the facts. So instead of, you're not paying attention to me, like, hey, I noticed you're looking away as I was talking, and I'm wondering what's going on for you right now as we talk, or what are you thinking about right now? Using those open-ended questions. Does anybody not know what I say? Raise your hand if you have never heard of open-ended questions or you're not sure what that means. I'm going to cold call on a couple of people. Indira, can you tell me what an open-ended question is? All right, I'm gonna pick on someone else. How about Ruby? What's an open-ended question? Are you there?
Sorry.
You're good.
So an open-ended questions is a question that can't be answered with like a simple yes or no.
Mm-hmm. Can you give
So,
an example?
tell me about a time where you felt upset.
Yeah. That sounds like kind of a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Definitely. So when was the last time you felt upset? That's an
Yeah.
open-ended question.
Yeah.
Using a when, a what, a why, a how.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
not just answering like yes or no.
Mhm.
They have to give you like an explanation.
Yeah. One thing that I'm going to say with this is that whys are not necessarily going to be helpful. I think it's really hard sometimes to develop that insight into this is why I do that. I mean, personally, cards on the table, I think that's why there are entire fields that stem around helping people understand why they do things. But a what happened before this argument, or how are you feeling right now? Rather than why did you do that can be really, really, really helpful. Another tip here would be, and then as we talk about staying neutral, we've talked about this a little bit, but what is the difference between, hey, I noticed that you looked upwards and I noticed you're rolling your eyes? What does it say? Like, what does it mean if somebody is rolling their eyes? And I know that sounds really obvious, but I've got a method to my madness here, y'all. Whoopsie. Right. It's disrespect. It's like being annoyed. And it's really, really charged to say, hey, you're rolling your eyes at me, or don't you talk back to me, or any of these things that maybe you hear from that older students or teenagers may hear. And even something like, hey, I saw that you're crying can be, that can be so charged. Someone can say, no, I'm not crying. But there's a difference between that and like, hey, I noticed that as we were talking, I saw you, rub the corner of your eye. What's going on for you? That's a really, really neutral way to kind of step in to that person's world and better understand them without accusing them of something that maybe they feel like they shouldn't be doing. Another tip for this is just, you may notice that I do it a lot, but slowing down as you speak, breathing as you talk. I like to breathe in and say, hey, this is not about me, as I'm listening to what they're saying, and just sort of start to calm myself down. I think that can make a really, really big difference, especially in these one-on-one situations where you don't want to like continue to escalate. You want to start to understand what's going on. And just be aware of your body language. Things like, oh, I'm crossing my arms, things like I'm sighing as you're talking to me. Those all communicate something. So ask yourself, what messages are you communicating to your students? And lastly, this is something that I just try to keep as a piece of my mindset. Whether I'm talking with students, whether I'm talking with tutors or any other staff anywhere, or people in general, there is a difference between people and their behavior. And it is really important that your students know, even if they're acting out, even if they're giving you attitude, even if they're saying things that you think they shouldn't be saying, it is so important for them to know that you still care for and respect them. So I encourage you, as we have these conversations, to try to end them on that note of respect, of thanks for talking with me about this, of I'm glad that you shared this because I feel like I can better understand you. Kevin, what's up?
So I remember from the conference last year that somebody's named Mikey. He said that we should like say less and listen more. What do you think about that?
I think that that's important in these conversations. I think that if the student is saying a lot, that it is really important to listen and not just, think that you know what they're saying. To me, that feels like another piece of the way that I say it again is like, be curious. That feels like another, the same thing coming at it from different angles.
I think it works for parents as well because they are our customers.
Yeah. Definitely. And a lot of these skills of keeping cool under pressure, you may notice this is really similar to what we talked about when we're having conversations with stakeholders. This is just some simple communication and things that we all, I think, need to practice. I know there are things in here that I still work on practicing. So please do not think that I am coming at this as an expert. This is just relationship and trust building. Any questions about any of these points that we've covered so far, or points that you might add? How do you keep cool under pressure? Amy, are there any other ways that you keep cool under pressure?
I like to make jokes. And then that makes me and usually everybody else laugh.
Yeah, if there's if it's a situation where you know the student well enough and a joke might land, that could be a really good way to diffuse that tension. If you don't know, you may want to be kind of careful about it. I'll always read the room, all of that. Thank you. All right, so moving on to our next piece of this topic. We've talked about keeping cool under pressure. And sometimes that turns into, what do you do? Because I'm doing all of these things and it's not working. What do we do then? We talked about restorative practices, and now we're like, oh my gosh, are these restorative practices even helping?
So I would personally say that we shouldn't just abandon the restorative practices if we feel like it's not working. I don't know if any of you have had a challenging life as a child or anything like that, but it's challenging to open up. It's as a student, as a child going through different traumatic experiences, it's challenging to trust people, right? So we can't expect like
You're never going to have instant results.
yeah, we're not going to have instant results. Even 2 weeks, sometimes 2 months isn't enough time for some students, depending on the level of things that they've been through and their personality and just all kinds of things. You see this a lot with foster students. A lot of foster kids in the foster care system have a very hard time trusting people. So what we're going to do when we feel like it's not working is see what I did there? Keep using the 4 questions and redirecting to the social contract. We're going to keep doing that, and we're going to keep doing that with every student, right? That's a matter of respect on some level, to make sure that everyone understands that we respect you and we're going to treat you all the same no matter what, right? Also, have one-on-one conversations with them. It doesn't have to be the site captain that does this, okay? Tutors, you can have one-on-one conversations with your students. You want to communicate to your team. Hey, I want to go talk with this student and see what's up, right? And some of you are going to have a great relationship with some students and not others, and then it's going to be reversed for your coworkers, right? For your team. Each one of you has a different relationship with your students, and that has to do with personality, how often you've worked with them. You're not all going to have the same exact relationship with your students. So whoever the student trusts to talk to, allow them the opportunity to have a conversation with that student. There was one school site we visited, they'll probably recognize themselves, but I won't say who it was, where there was concern about a specific student, not necessarily in behavior, but there were just some challenges with the student's abilities, and they were very hyper. And one particular tutor was concerned when Sketch and I went to visit for an observation that there would be some trouble. But realistically, this tutor was the only person who that student seemed to respect and seemed to listen to and respond to, right? And it was great. The way it was handled was great. It wasn't perfect. The student didn't just sit down and shut up and pay attention, right? That's not what we're looking for, right? We're not looking for perfection here. We're not looking for kids are going to still be kids, but we are looking for that attempt to develop relationship and maintain relationship.
If you're looking for perfection, you're going to keep looking for a really, really, really long time.
Yes, very much so. So speaking of relationship, you want to focus on relationship. Your relationship with the student should be at the forefront of your mind. Coming at them hard will damage that relationship. So could somebody tell me what it means to come at them hard?
What does that look like? Shall we cold call?
Let us. Okay, I'm going to volunteer some people. Monica, tell me what it looks like to come to have somebody come at them hard.
Hi, Monica.
Hi. It was like the question earlier, the way that you asked the question as you come at them at, what are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing? Why did you do that? And I've been guilty, and I imagine when you say, why did you do that, you'll never get an answer. It's open-ended, but it's accusing, and it puts them on a defensive, and it's also sometimes taking it too personal. because it's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly,
Thank you.
Monica. Thank you for that. I'm going to tell a story now about one of Amy's experiences. I think I shared this last year, so if you've heard this before, I apologize in advance. But I was working at another organization, and we had these twins come in, and they had yet to be socialized. And what that means is they spent all of their preschool age time at home with mom. They hadn't been around a whole lot of other students for a consistent amount of time. So they came in, and one of the twins was acting up to the point where like they were kicking things and refusing to do things. And I hadn't had a student this difficult yet in my experience. So I was standing there trying to get this student to do something, and you could just tell my body language, like my hands were in fists, balled up fists by my arms, my shoulders were tense, and I was like ready to yell. And my coworker came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, I got it. Why don't you go finish this lesson?" And we switched places. Thank God, because it was a tough time for me. Now, I know some of you have seen me with students and some misbehaving students, and I'm nowhere near that, right? This was like 6 or 7 years ago, seven years ago. I've done a lot of work to change that and to work on breathing in the moment myself so that I don't get that angry. I've also done a lot of work of understanding where kids are coming from, right? When kids, and these were like kindergartners, and when they get a life change like that as kindergartners, and they haven't had a lot of interaction with other students, they don't know how to respond and react. They don't know what they're doing. So I've learned that. I learned from that. You're going to make mistakes. That's going to happen. Okay. I mean, I know y'all are like hoping that you don't, but I'm going to burst that bubble for you right now. You're going to make mistakes.
Or you've already made mistakes, because I know I have. It's okay.
I'm the queen of making mistakes. Okay. To be fair, I learned from them, but you're going to make mistakes, and that is okay. This is probably, I'm going to tell you, with all the experience I have, this is the best organization to make mistakes with. Okay. The best by far organization to make mistakes with, because we're here to help you learn. Right. So you're going to do it. When you do make mistakes, let's say you yell at your students, or I've done this where like I've been thinking of the back of my mind, and a student has asked me a question. I've been like, "What?" And then I stop and I go, "I'm so sorry. That came out the wrong way. I did not mean for that tone. How may I help you?" Right? So you want to apologize to your students when you come at them hard, when you do make mistakes, when you go fly off the handle. It's going to happen. It happens to all of us, right? Reset, center yourself, apologize. Tell your students, "I'm so sorry that happened. I wasn't able to communicate my feelings in a good way. Please forgive me."
Even if it's the next day, it's not too late,
Yeah, the next day is not too late. Not too late at all. So, but that's what we mean when we say coming at them hard, like, "What are you doing?"
Or that you always do this, you never do this.
Yeah. Those who speak Spanish, por date bien. I got that one all the time. All the time. I know, it's funny. That kind of stuff, that hard, like, there's a lot of judgment that comes with it. Like, you're assuming already that they're doing something wrong. And they may not be. They may be doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing because another tutor asked them to do that, right? You don't know. That's what coming at them hard is. And 2 more things. 1, consistency. Even if they don't talk about it with you, remain consistent. If you see a student crying, right, you can use the neutral language. I usually just walk up and I'm like, "Hey, are you okay?" Quietly. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need some time? Do you need to talk? Can you guys hear
That's
me?"
one of those places where those closed-ended questions actually work really, really well, because you just need the yes or no.
Right. Oh, yes.
You're
yes.
respecting boundaries.
Yeah. So if they don't talk with you about it, that's okay. Do you need space? Do you need to take a walk? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Right. I had a student who was dealing with some major life changes, possibly moving schools and not coming back to this area. And they were very upset one day. And I just said, hey, do you need to go to the bathroom? And they were like, no. And I was like, no, really, do you need to go to the bathroom? And then they got they picked up what I was putting down. They took a walk to the bathroom and they sat in there for a little bit and, calmed themselves down, freshened up. Sometimes that's all they need, and that's okay, right? Some school sites, please be wary. You do have to escort your students to the bathroom, so be mindful of that. We could see the bathroom door from our cafeteria, so we didn't have to do that. So just adjust that for your location and what you're required to do with your students. And then finally, we've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Don't take it personally. Please don't take it personally. Okay. 9 times out of 10, it's not personal. And then even when it is, they're kids. All right, Sketch, you ready?
Absolutely, I am. So as we talk about all of this, it is so important. I know this is the first time we've ever brought up this topic. It's really important to take care of yourself. Working with children is hard. Working with children who have experienced trauma is hard. Working with a group of children is hard. Working with people who don't trust you is hard. I don't think anybody has ever said that this is a cakewalk. And if they have, tell me who it is. No, I'm kidding. Because I'll be like, what are you talking about? You have got to take time for yourself. And as we've talked about, that doesn't just mean, ooh, all right, it's my day off, so here I'm going to use all of that time for recharge. Do that. And what does it look like for you to build in permission to rest through the week? Take time for yourself. So, tips that I have for this, they're pretty simple, but I think we all need reminders, including myself. Use your break. You have a 10-minute break that can happen at any point during your shift. You want to plan it strategically so that people are always being supervised. You want to communicate ahead of time. You want to know when you're going to do that and use it. And if you need to turn off your phone, or if you need to have an alarm and put everything else on do not disturb, do it. And if you need to walk around, do it. If you need more breaks than that, if there's something that's going on, or you need some sort of accommodation or some sort of support, reach out so that we can get that figured out, because everybody's different. Like we talked about on Tuesday, like we talked about when we were talking about needs, this is where that comes in. I am a fan, and Osahan knows this, because Osahan has made me do this, of taking what I called like a mini vacation. And like Amy mentioned, with like a student who just needed to go to the bathroom and splash some water on their face, that may happen with you too. Take a walk to the bathroom or a water fountain. Let people know where you're going. Don't just disappear, because everything kind of gets planned around knowing who's here and who's doing what on the team. But take a walk to the bathroom. Say, I just need to fill up my water bottle and I'll be back in 30 seconds. That's simple. That's easy. Or 2 minutes. Breathe. I know that I've talked about that so much that it becomes a cliche. And it's not like, oh, that's going to solve every single crisis that comes our way. You know, that's what people power is for. That's what proper documentation is for. That's what being somebody who can sit down and have a one-on-one conversation is for. There are so many other things that go into solving crisis situations. But day to day, before your session, after your session, breathe. It's so easy to forget. What's up, Amy?
I just want to throw this in there also in terms of breathing, taking a walk, all that. At Lexington, we used to keep a drawer full of snacks for tutors. So we had like little chocolates, things like that, that we would keep back there. So if we needed a break and just needed a pick-me-up or needed something like that, there was always some sort of candy or snack there for tutors specifically. This was not the snacks that we give to students. It was not any of that. It was little things If you're able to do that at your site, because I know some sites, the principals don't allow it. And you're not allowed to keep it in the cafeteria where your supper is. But if you have a place where you can keep something like that, man, let me tell, I can't tell you how many times during stressful towards the end of the year or right before winter break, I'd be like, I need a Reese's peanut butter cup. And walk up, go to our little drawer, I'd take out a Reese's peanut butter cup and eat it, not in view of the students. And I would eat it and I would just, okay, and then get back to work. So that's something that I highly recommend for y'all as staff, is just to maybe invest in some snacks that y'all can keep in a place, and for a little break and a little treat for you to help you get through the day.
Absolutely. And that goes along, I mean, low blood sugar, if you're crashing, that's going to turn something that maybe was a really simple thing that just had a quick solution into, you know what, this has become a lot more overwhelming, or it feels more overwhelming. So it is important. Let's see, this one I'm kind of saying know yourself to grow yourself because it rhymes and it's cute. And I know we remember those sorts of things. But what I mean is that, like, there are going to be things that are going to bother you. There are going to be things that may bother you in a way that they don't bother other people on your team, because we've all got different histories, different stories, different lives. A lot of us have also had lived experiences that can be similar to students. And so there can also be that additional level of, oh my gosh, I'm resonating really, really hard with this, to the point that I'm taking it home, to the point that I'm losing sleep, all of that. I do think it is very important to be aware of what bothers you, because then you know how to handle it and it's not blindsiding you. That's going to look different for different people. I am always happy to talk. It just, your stuff comes up, and so you want to be aware of, oh, this is what that's about. Like we said with students, hey, this is not if a student is confronting you, there's a chance that it's often not about you. And the same thing can be true of your feelings. Like, hey, this is coming up for me, and this is actually about, like, these ways that I was treated in school, as opposed to being about my students. It just happens. We're people. Apart from that, unplug after work. I do not disturb modes save my life. If you're checking your email, I would hope that you're all checking your email daily. But y'all, I check my email when I clock in. I check my email when I clock out, and then I'm done. And that's it. Even when I was a tutor and I had to fill out a mandated report, or even when I was a coordinator and I had to fill out mandated reports, maybe that's happening outside of my hours. When that's done, when I have put that paperwork in, I'm done. And I need that rest, because otherwise, how am I going to be able to handle the next things that come my way? I'm not going to. So whatever it looks like for you to unplug, to leave work at work, all of that, I really want you to continue doing it. And lastly, seek support. I know we're a broken record, but I'm going to add one piece to this. Seek support before you think you need it. Because maybe there are things that we can help with. Oh my gosh, it is. I'm sorry. Seek support before you think you need it. Whether that's having a conversation with me, whether that's having a conversation with Amy or with Osahan or with Angel or with Presley, anyone in this web of care. Because a lot of times prevention can be a really helpful cure, and there are things that we can work through together. We can even do this for whole groups, whole sites. I've done that for a couple of sites, and just started to identify there's a lot of stuff that's going on. What's the first thing that we can work on together? So those are some of my tips for taking care of you and developing that rhythm. Also, whatever self-care looks like to you, but this isn't even just self-care. This is like self-maintenance. This is being able to continue to do the work that you're doing and figuring out what it looks like to replenish yourself. And if you think that you are a superhero who doesn't need this, that is not true. I think even if you were a superhero, you do need it. So with that, we are gonna do, this is our last slide actually. What questions do people have on any of this piece of this topic so far? All right. So we are going to do one of these Slido polls again. I like these because we get to hear from everyone and don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, 2-minute rule or anything like that. You can just say what you're thinking. So I will put this in the chat for those of you who need it. And I'm also going to read out the instructions. You're going to go to Slido, SLIDO.com. And the code is 2896542. And I think we're going to do, if y'all are cool with it, I want to do a 5-minute just bio break, stretch break, reflection break. Do what you need to do. And when you get back, we're going to do this debrief. So you can hop in and write it right now, but I want you to literally take some time and think about what needs your attention right now. Do you need some water? Do you need to stand up? Do you have a bit of a twinge in your shoulder that needs your attention? These are all really important things. So I suppose that means we will be back at 2:46. What's up, Kevin?
It seems that I'm having an issue with getting in the number. It says,
289,
sorry, there is no such event active right now.
6542. Okay, give me a second to see if maybe I flipped a couple of those numbers around, and I will put that right in the chat. Yeah, give me just one moment, okay?
All right, thank you.
Alrighty, it is 2:46. That link is back. So I'm gonna give you those 2 minutes because I see just a few people have typed and they can maybe share something that's come up for them. And then I'll share and we can all kind of see what people are saying. I'm just going to read these responses as they come in then, just so that we can all kind of hear what people are interested in. So I see team building activities, engaging in activities or topics that interest them, taking the time to really get to know them as a person, such as asking about their hobbies and interests, taking the time to have one-on-one conversations, having one-on-ones with them, visiting a sporting event or after-school event that they're participating in. Yeah, if that's possible. Asking with a kind tone, simple questions, and listening to what they have to say patiently. Being more attentive to their needs, building that trust and safe space. I want to participate in games to them. Some students love playing teacher, so I play pretend as a student and they love it. It's a fun way to bond. Learn more about their interests, try to incorporate them in sessions. We have these common pieces: time, spending time, students, discussions to prevent bullying. That would absolutely be something that I would love to talk about more with whoever is from whichever site there, because bullying and prevention is a big thing and there's so many different pieces to that. I'm gonna wait for the last couple of people who are participating in here because I see a couple of you typing. And as I wait there for those who are sharing, for sure, yeah, let's talk about it. Maybe we can talk as a full site. That would be cool. Recognizing and realizing they're humans as we are, and we need that. Recognizing hurts. So I am gonna give you all kind of a challenge. So we've talked about over the course of this this week of trainings, we have talked about team chemistry and how we all have areas that we want to grow, areas that we're interested in, things that we're good at. We've talked about data, we've talked about the importance of stories, and we talked about affirmations. That's really the piece that I want to touch on. This idea of like catching someone when they're doing a good job. And as you see this, and as you continue to talk with your teams about how you want to build those relationships with students, if you see something that somebody has done really well, I want you to tell them, hey, I noticed that you had this one-on-one with the student and it looked like they really benefited from it. Thank you for doing that. I think that was awesome. It just takes a little bit of time out of your day. And I know there are so many things that happen in your day. I want to encourage this to be one of them, because I think this is something that we all work on in all of our different ways. And the best thing that you can do is hold each other accountable as a team in that positive way. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you everyone for sharing what resonated with you or how you want to build those relationships. I love that there are as many different answers to this as there are people on this training. And my last thing for you all is just to share something in the chat that you have learned over the course of these 3 days of training, something that you're going to take away and that you want to focus on or you want to learn more about. Ready? In 3, 2, 1, go. Or one thing that you will continue to think about. Didn't know I had a preference when it comes to tutoring, like different age groups. Yeah, a lot of people do. Learn to better approach our students in crisis. Go school box is what I'm thinking about. We are going to get that so figured out. Listen more. How to frame a question when a student is off task. Thank you for that, Kim. Be more patient with students and yourself. Yes, both are so important. Different ways to build rapport. I really am challenging you to catch each other doing this and point out those pieces. And I would love to hear from you if there's like a point where you're like, oh yeah, I totally noticed this thing and this person did this really well. You can always contact me for that if you like. How to get to the SEL folders. That is so important. I'm going to be recording a video that goes over how to navigate the Google Drive in the next week or so. So if that is something that you need, that will be something that is readily available as soon as it's done and I edit it and upload it. All right. Well, thank you all for sharing something that you have taken away from these trainings. I do hope that this has been really helpful and maybe given you a bit of a new perspective on some step-by-step things and some practical skills really that help with these different age groups. And I think that is it for us, so we can stop recording. Am I able to do that?